There are moments in life when everything feels as though it's falling apart. When you stand in the wreckage of what used to be your certainty. You've lost things you thought you'd never lose. People, opportunities, maybe even your sense of self. It feels like you've been stripped down to nothing, but what if this isn't the end? What if this is the beginning of your greatest transformation? You're seeing this message because something within you has decided it's time. Time to rise, time to rebuild, time to remember who you truly are. Every soul reaches a breaking point, and at that very point, destiny whispers, now you will become who you were meant to be. This is not coincidence. You are entering the biggest comeback of your life. The breakdown is the moment when everything you thought you were begins to crumble. It's the collapse of the illusion that you were ever in control. Life, in its mysterious and often merciless wisdom, removes the things that no longer belong to the version of you that's emerging. The job you lose, the relationship that ends, the betrayal that wounds you to your core, all it feels like devastation. But beneath that destruction lies something sacred, the beginning of awakening. You see, we're taught to believe that growth happens in comfort, that peace means everything going our way.
But real transformation doesn't bloom in sunlight. It germinates in the dark soil of loss.
The breakdown shatters the outer shell that has kept you safe but small. It takes away the roles, the identities, and the stories that once defined you, leaving you face to face with the raw truth of your own being. That's why it hurts so deeply. You're not just losing things, you're losing versions of yourself that no longer fit. Where you're going, there's a universal law hidden in this chaos. Before rebirth, there must be destruction. Just as a seed must break open before it grows, your old self must crack apart to make room for your evolution. Most people fight this process. They try to tape back the pieces of what's falling apart. They try to return to the life that's already gone, to rebuild the illusion of control. But those who truly awaken are the ones who stop resisting the breakdown. They surrender to it, trusting that something greater is unfolding beneath the ruins. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and watching it shatter. At first, all you see are fragments, distorted reflections of yourself. You panic because you think you've lost who you are. But look closer. The mirror wasn't showing you the truth. It was showing you a version of yourself shaped by fear, by expectation, by the need to please or to prove. When it breaks, it reveals the emptiness behind it, the space where your true self has been waiting all along. Think about people who faced unimaginable breakdowns and came out transformed. There's a story of a man who lost everything in the financial crash. His business, his home, even his marriage. For years he lived in despair, convinced life had turned against him. But in that emptiness, he discovered what truly mattered. He began volunteering at shelters, finding meaning in helping others rebuild their lives. That man later said, losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to meet myself for the first time. His story isn't rare. It's universal. The breakdown reveals what's eternal by burning away what's temporary. Spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically, the breakdown is a cleansing fire.
It doesn't just destroy, it refines.
When life tears away your comfort and predictability, it's not cruelty, it's precision. It's the universe saying, you've outgrown this. You were meant for more than your current circumstances, but before you can receive more, you must release what you've been clinging to. Pain enters your life not to punish, but to purify. Look at nature. The forest fire that scorches acres of land also releases seeds that only open in extreme heat.
Those seeds were designed for transformation through destruction.
In the same way, the heat of your suffering activates parts of you that could never awaken in comfort. You begin to see patterns, truths, and inner strength that were invisible before. You realize that you were never broken, you were breaking open. But awakening is not immediate. In the first moments of breakdown, all you feel is disorientation. You question everything, your choices, your faith, your purpose. You may even question your worth. Yet, This questioning is vital. It's the soul's way of clearing away illusions. You begin to ask deeper questions, not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to teach me? And that shift from victimhood to awareness is the spark of awakening. In the chaos, you start to notice small glimpses of light, the peace in solitude, the clarity that comes from stillness, the quiet voice within that says, keep going. That voice is the part of you that's been waiting for this very moment, the true self emerging from the shadows. The breakdown doesn't create it. It reveals it. Every great life, every deep soul, every wise spirit you've ever admired has walked through their own breakdown. They faced nights when everything was stripped away, and yet those nights became the foundation of their strength. Because awakening is not about gaining new things, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. So when your life falls apart, when the familiar dissolves, when you feel like everything is slipping through your hands, pause. You are not being abandoned. You are being reassembled. Something ancient and powerful within you is awakening through this breaking. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that the moment everything fell apart was the moment you began to rise. The void is the space between who you were and who you're becoming. It's that strange hollow silence after the storm, where the noise of your old life fades, but the new one hasn't yet begun. You wake up and nothing feels familiar anymore. Not your dreams, not your direction, not even yourself. It's as if life has paused everything, leaving you suspended in a kind of emotional and spiritual weightlessness. You can't go back, and yet you don't know how to move forward. This is the void, an invisible classroom where your soul learns what the world can't teach you at first. It feels unbearable. You may feel like you've lost your purpose, your motivation, your spark. Things that once inspired you now feel meaningless. Conversations seem empty, routines lose flavor, and time stretches painfully slow. You look around and wonder why life has gone so quiet. It's in these moments that people often think they've failed, that they've been forgotten or left behind. But the truth is, the void is not abandonment, it's alignment. It's the silent period between the old chapter closing and the new one being written. Every major transformation in life requires this space. The void is where the soul recalibrates, where it sheds the noise of the old identity so that a new one can take root. In the same way that the earth rests in winter before spring blooms again, your spirit rests here before it rises renewed. The void asks for patience, but patience is hard when everything inside you is screaming for direction. You may try to fill the silence with distractions, work, relationships, endless scrolling, or even forced positivity, but nothing truly satisfies. That's because the void demands stillness, not escape. It asks you to be with yourself in a way you never have before. This period of nothingness is not a mistake. It's part of a natural, psychological rhythm that many people experience during deep transformation. Psychologists call it a liminal phase, a threshold state where your old patterns have disintegrated, but the new patterns have yet to form. In this in-between, your subconscious mind reorganizes itself. It's rewriting your story, reprogramming your identity, and preparing you for the next chapter. But this reprogramming takes time, and during that time, nothing seems to make sense. Think of someone who's lost a lifelong dream, a career they worked years for, or a relationship they believed would last forever. When it ends, they often don't know who they are anymore. They might say, "I feel empty," or "I don't even recognize myself." What they're describing is the void. The old version of them was tied to that dream or that person. Without it, they feel undefined. Yet in that undefined state, something powerful begins to form. A new identity not based on roles or outcomes, but on truth. Many of the world's most profound figures went through this same silence before their breakthroughs. Nelson Mandela had 27 years of solitude and confinement before emerging as a leader of forgiveness and unity. He didn't find his strength in noise or action. It was forged in the quiet. Steve Jobs experienced his own void after being fired from the company he created. That emptiness led him to reflect deeply, and from it came the creativity that later birthed Apple's greatest innovations.
Even spiritual seekers throughout history retreated into deserts,
Caves or wildernesses to confront this inner silence, because they understood that only in stillness can you meet the self behind all illusions.
The void strips you of false attachments.
It shows you that meaning cannot be found outside of you. It must be cultivated within. That's why so many people panic when they enter it. They've spent their lives defining themselves by things that can be lost. When those things disappear, they think they've lost themselves. But the truth is, what's really happening is that life is gently removing what you are not. If you listen closely during this phase, you'll start to notice subtle shifts. Small moments of clarity will appear, like the first cracks of dawn after a long night. You'll realize that not knowing what's next is actually freedom. It's the blank canvas from which anything can be painted. The void gives you the rare gift of starting again, not as a reaction to the world, but as a creation of your soul. This period also teaches humility. It teaches you to live without constant validation, without immediate answers. It invites you to trust unseen timing, to understand that just because you can't see growth doesn't mean it isn't happening. In fact, most of your growth happens underground, in silence. A seed doesn't sprout the moment it's planted. It spends time unseen, building roots strong enough to hold its future.
The same is true for you.
So, when you find yourself in that place where nothing makes sense, where you feel invisible or lost, remember that you are not being erased. You are being rewritten. Life has pressed pause so that you can realign with your true essence. You are not meant to fill the void. You are meant to feel it, to sit within it until it teaches you what you came here to learn. Because the void is not emptiness, it's the birthplace of becoming. The rebuilding begins quietly, almost unnoticed. It doesn't come with grand announcements or sudden bursts of clarity. It begins in the small, trembling moments after the breakdown and the silence of the void,
when you are still unsure of yourself but feel a faint, stubborn spark deep inside whispering,
"Try again." This is the moment when your life begins to take shape again, not from what you lost, but from what you learned. The rubble of the old you becomes the raw material for something far stronger. Rebuilding is not about returning to how things were. It's about creating something entirely new from the truth you've uncovered through your pain. Pain changes you. It removes illusions and teaches you what truly matters. But after the suffering fades, you're left with a choice: to let pain define you or to let it refine you. Choosing purpose over pain means you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I create from this?" This single shift in perspective is the bridge from victimhood to victory. Many people never cross it. They stay trapped in the echo of their wounds, replaying the past until it becomes their identity. But those who rise choose differently. They take what broke them and turn it into their blueprint for growth. When you rebuild with purpose, you begin to see your scars differently. They stop being reminders of what was lost and become symbols of what was survived. They tell a story not of weakness, but of endurance. Think of the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, making the cracks part of the beauty rather than something to hide. That's what rebuilding with purpose does. It turns your damage into design. You stop trying to be flawless and instead become fearless, understanding that your greatest value lies not in what's untouched, but in what's been transformed. Purpose doesn't always reveal itself immediately. Often it emerges in fragments, an idea, a calling, a small tug in your heart that won't go away. You might find yourself drawn to help others through the very pain you endured. The woman who survived heartbreak becomes a counselor who teaches self-worth. The man who lost everything in business becomes a mentor for resilience. The parent who grieved a loss becomes an advocate for healing. It's no coincidence that many of the world's most inspiring leaders, artists, and thinkers have known profound pain. They used their experiences as fuel, not chains. Rebuilding also requires courage, the courage to take the first step even when you can't see the whole path. You will question yourself. You will have days when the voice of doubt is louder than your faith. But every act of rebuilding, no matter how small, sends a message to your soul. I'm not done yet. And the universe responds to that message. It begins aligning opportunities, connections, and moments of grace that match your renewed energy.
you start attracting experiences that reflect the person you are becoming, not the one you once were. Real-life stories are full of this truth. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter while living on welfare, rejected multiple times before the world saw her genius. She once said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Her pain became her purpose, to inspire imagination in a generation that needed it. Similarly, Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote Man's Search for Meaning. While surrounded by unimaginable suffering, he discovered that even when everything is taken from us, the last human freedom is to choose our attitude, to find meaning in the midst of pain. His words have healed millions because they were born from authenticity. Rebuilding also means forgiving, not just others, but yourself. You must release the guilt for what you didn't know then, for the choices you made when you were just trying to survive. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the hurt. It means freeing yourself from its hold. You can't build something new if your hands are still clinging to what's broken. Letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's the doorway to strength. As you begin to rebuild, life will test your commitment. You'll face moments where progress feels invisible and temptation whispers to return to old habits. But remember, growth rarely looks dramatic in real time. It's a slow, deliberate process of layering strength where fragility once lived. Every time you get up when you don't feel like it, every time you choose faith over fear, every time you turn pain into action, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your comeback. The beauty of rebuilding is that you no longer need everything to be perfect. You stop striving to prove your worth and start living from it. You find meaning not in possessions or achievements, but in alignment with your values, your truth, and your soul. You begin to realize that the purpose you were searching for isn't somewhere out there. It's born within you every time you choose love over resentment, hope over despair, creation over destruction. Rebuilding is the art of becoming whole again, stronger, softer, wiser, and freer. It's the moment when you take back authorship of your story and say, "This is who I am now." You no longer see yourself as the person who was broken, but as the one who learned how to rise. Pain may have been the teacher, but purpose is the reward. And when you build from that place, nothing can shake what you create. When you decide to rise, life doesn't simply clear a smooth path for you. Instead, it tests your strength, your patience, and your authenticity. Resistance appears the moment you start moving forward. It's as if the universe wants to know if you truly mean what you say, if your transformation is real or just a fleeting desire born from temporary inspiration. These tests don't come to punish you, they come to strengthen you. They shape your new self into something unshakable. Growth that isn't tested cannot be trusted, and resistance is life's way of making sure your foundation is solid before you step into what you've been asking for. At first, this can feel cruel. You've endured the breakdown, survived the void, begun rebuilding yourself with purpose. And now, just when you start to feel hope again, obstacles appear from every direction. Old habits resurface, people doubt you, unexpected problems arise. It can feel as if the world is conspiring against your progress. But what's really happening is that life is matching your inner change with external challenges, giving you chances to apply what you've learned. It's easy to talk about faith when things are calm. It's much harder to live it when everything around you starts shaking. Every great transformation is met with resistance because change threatens the systems, internal and external, that benefited from your old patterns. When you decide to heal, the wounds you ignored begin to ache. When you decide to set boundaries, those who once exploited your lack of them push back. When you begin to value yourself, situations that once thrived on your self-doubt will fight to keep you small. This is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's proof that you're walking out of an old one. Resistance comes in many forms. Sometimes it's internal, self-doubt, fear, procrastination, or the voice in your head whispering that you're not ready. Other times it's external, rejection, criticism, financial strain, or people questioning your choices. It's natural to interpret these as signs that you should give up, but often they're the very experiences designed to make you stronger.
Consider a muscle. It only grows through resistance. Without tension, there's no strength. Your spirit works the same way. Think of the story of Michael Jordan. Before he became the greatest basketball player of all time, he was cut from his high school team. That rejection could have broken him, but instead, it became the fuel for his greatness. Every missed shot, every criticism, every failure refined his precision and deepened his hunger. Or look at Thomas Edison, who was told by his teachers that he was too stupid to learn anything. He went on to create over 1,000 patents, many after countless failed experiments. Each setback was resistance. Each resistance was a lesson in endurance. The same principle applies to spiritual and emotional growth. When you decide to live with integrity, situations will arise to tempt you away from it. When you decide to forgive, you'll be tested by reminders of your pain. When you decide to love yourself, you'll meet experiences that challenge, that love. These aren't coincidences. They are opportunities to demonstrate that your transformation isn't theory, it's truth. Life tests every declaration. It asks, will you live by what you say you believe when it's hardest to do so? In psychology, there's a concept known as homeostasis, the tendency for systems to resist change and seek stability. Your mind, your emotions, and even your environment do this. When you begin to evolve, the old version of you doesn't vanish easily. It tries to pull you back into familiar patterns. That's why relapse happens after progress, why fear spikes after success, why doubt creeps in just when confidence begins to grow. The key is to recognize resistance not as a wall but as a mirror. It shows you where your faith still wavers, where your boundaries need reinforcement, and where your self-belief is still fragile. The most successful people in the world aren't those who never face resistance. They're the ones who learn to dance with it. They understand that the moment of resistance is sacred. It's the threshold between the old identity and the new. If you push through it, you step into expansion. If you retreat, you return to limitation. Each challenge is an invitation to prove that your growth is real. There's also a deeper spiritual truth in resistance. It acts as a purifier. It removes arrogance, impatience, and entitlement. It teaches humility and gratitude. When things don't come easily, you learn to appreciate what does. When life delays your desires, you develop faith in divine timing. When you face opposition, you learn discernment, what's worth fighting for and what's worth releasing. Resistance refines your character, aligning you not just with success, but with wisdom. So when life starts testing your growth, when old fears return, when your path feels uncertain, when the people around you don't understand, pause and remember that this is part of the process. You're being shaped, not stopped. The pressure you feel is molding you into the person capable of holding what you've prayed for. Every challenge is chiseling away what's false, leaving behind only what's strong, true, and enduring. Resistance doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're becoming. There comes a moment, often without warning, when you realize that something within you has shifted. You wake up one morning, and the weight that once pressed against your spirit feels lighter. The noise in your mind has softened, and the fears that once ruled you no longer have the same power. It's not that life has suddenly become easier, it's that you have become stronger. You have changed from the inside out. What once shattered you now shapes you. What once controlled you now teaches you. This is the rise, the sacred moment when you begin to step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. The rise isn't a single event. It's a gradual unfolding. It doesn't happen with applause or visible milestones. Often, it happens quietly, in the way you start choosing peace instead of chaos, truth instead of comfort, authenticity instead of approval. You no longer chase what's unstable because you've learned to stand steady within yourself. The person you were before, the one who needed validation, who sought safety in the wrong places, who mistook being busy for being fulfilled, begins to fade. What takes its place is someone rooted in clarity, calm, and purpose. This rise is the harvest of everything you've endured. The breakdown stripped away your illusions. The void taught you stillness. The rebuilding forged your strength. The resistance refined your will. Now in the rise,
All those lessons come together like pieces of a divine puzzle, revealing a version of you that feels both unfamiliar and deeply true. You start to recognize that every pain, every delay, every loss was not an interruption, but a preparation. You begin to understand why certain doors closed, because they led somewhere smaller than your destiny. In this stage, your energy changes. You no longer move from desperation, but from direction. You don't force what's not meant for you because you trust what is. Life begins to flow with you rather than against you, and you realize that much of what you called fate was actually the reflection of your own growth. The universe mirrors your inner transformation. When you stand tall, opportunities stand before you. When you radiate self-respect, others respond in kind. When you stop begging for validation, the right people begin to appear, those who see your worth without needing explanation. The rise is not about becoming someone new, it's about returning to who you've always been beneath the noise. You were born with strength, intuition, and purpose, but somewhere along the way, the world taught you to forget. The rise is the great remembering. It's when you stop apologizing for your light and finally step into it. You start to speak with more certainty, love with more boundaries, and live with more intention. You no longer fear solitude because you've discovered your own company is sacred. You no longer chase people because you've realized your energy is not something to be handed out carelessly. It's something to be shared consciously. There are many people never reach this stage because the climb is steep. Rising requires courage, the courage to outgrow your past, to disappoint those who preferred your smaller self, to face the discomfort of expansion. But those who do rise carry a rare kind of power. They move through the world with quiet confidence, not because life is easy, but because they've learned that difficulty is not destruction, it's development. They understand that real peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to stand firm within them. There's a point when even your reflection seems different, not because your face has changed, but because your eyes they carry the calm of someone who has seen darkness and chosen light anyway. You speak differently, not with arrogance, but with authority. You've earned every word through experience. The world may still throw challenges your way, but they no longer shake you the same way. You don't crumble under pressure because your roots now reach deeper than the surface. The rise is also deeply spiritual. It's the awakening of the soul after long dormancy. You begin to feel guided, connected to something larger than yourself. Synchronicities appear. Small signs, aligned moments, opportunities that seem to find you effortlessly. It's not magic, it's alignment. When your inner world is healed, your outer world reflects that healing. You start to attract what matches your vibration: peace, purpose, love, and clarity. The external world begins to respond to the frequency of your authenticity. In this stage, gratitude becomes your constant companion. You stop asking why me and start saying thank you. Thank you for the struggle that made me strong. Thank you for the loss that taught me to let go. Thank you for the silence that helped me hear my soul. You realize that life was never working against you. It was always working through you. Every ending was a redirection, every rejection was protection, and every detour was guidance. And as you rise, you begin to lift others. You no longer need to preach or persuade. Your presence becomes its own message. People feel it in your calmness, in your grounded energy, in the way you no longer chase or compete. You inspire simply by being whole. The rise is not loud, it's luminous. It's the quiet glow of a soul that finally understands its own worth. You've walked through fire, drowned in silence, rebuilt from ashes, and stood through storms. And now, here you are, unshaken, aware, and alive. You've become who you were always meant to be, not perfect, but present, not untouchable, but unbreakable. You've returned to yourself, and in doing so, you've discovered that the true victory was never about what you gained, it was about who you became. And now, as we reach the end of this journey, remember this. Everything you've walked through was not meant to destroy you, but to deliver you. The pain, the silence, the rebuilding, the resistance. They were never punishments, they were preparations. You were being refined for a life far greater than the one you thought you had lost. Every soul destined for something extraordinary must first be stripped of everything ordinary.
That's how the universe makes room for truth. That's how strength is forged, wisdom is born, and destiny is revealed. You are not standing in the ruins of your past. You are standing at the gates of your becoming. This is your comeback season. The world may not see it yet, but something inside you knows. It's time. Time to rise with the lessons you've learned, to walk with the quiet confidence of someone who has faced their darkness and chosen light anyway. You have already proven that you can survive. Now it's time to live, fully, fearlessly, and freely. So take a breath, stand tall, and step forward. The worst is behind you, the lesson is within you, and the best, the truest, most powerful, most radiant version of you is just beginning. You are not who you were, you are who you were always, meant to be. And the world is waiting for your rise.